So here's Denali, and this is session number 4 with him. Session number 3 was later on in the afternoon the day before, and unfortunately my battery in my phone was dead. But we had just made a little bit more progress in him letting me touch his body, and I was able to brush out his tail. So you can kind of tell that yesterday had made a big difference in him mentally, and he really is a very sweet boy. He's been pretty fun to work with. So my kind of focus today was seeing if I could get those front feet trimmed. Might be a little hard to see from the distance in the video, but his feet are pretty long, and on top of that, he's packing sand in there, which again puts even more pressure kind of on his tendons. So I really believe in, if my Mustang's feet are long, that's kind of like where I try to get them comfortable enough where I can trim them fairly early on, because if I can get them feeling better, it makes the whole training process a lot easier. Oftentimes people will leave the feet longer, and the horses just can't help but be reactive because they don't feel good. So I'm going to work on first seeing how he handles the rope with it touching his foot. And again, a lot of this is based on feel. So he's been one that really likes to my touch kind of versus objects. So, but again, kind of the first time in handling feet, I will typically touch with the stick, and then I go with using the rope. I really like this rope. It's a very soft cotton rope. So kind of, again, this is all horse dependent, kind of what they feel like, what I feel like they need. So he was very, very good about that. Really not responsive, kind of all actually coming towards me and the rope. Again, it's all in how they react. So he is following the pressure of the rope really, really well. I have found for the Twin Peaks horses, I think we have had around 5 or 6 of them, and they've all been really, really reasonable about their feet. Probably more so on the unusually good side as far as working with Mustangs go. But he's very good, and he feels very kind of soft. Oftentimes, if you were to pick up this leg, they'll jerk it back down, but he's offering me his leg, and all these things again are kind of feel where I'm going through and checking the boxes. It may seem like I'm kind of skipping things, but kind of on him I am skipping things, but it's because he's kind of answering all the questions with certain things. So there I was able to go and touch. And a very common behavior will be when you go to touch their legs that they may offer to nip you, which again, I lost my rope there, so could have been a bit of a dangerous spot, but he's a good boy. So it's a bit of can be a chess game sometimes, and it's very common behavior, especially when you watch the colts play. They go and they'll be biting their legs, and so it can be just a very common response for if you go to pick up that leg, they're going to try to nip you, and you just have to help them realize that that's not the answer that we're looking for. But he was very good in picking up that foot when I asked, and you can just see how long those toes are and how much pressure he's kind of loading onto those tendons. He has pretty decent conformation. They're just really long and packed with sand. So I'm hoping that I can help him feel better. And again, the hard part can be good about touching the leg, and then it's when you're asking them to hold it up. He gave me a pretty good feel. So, He's not really locking up in his body. He doesn't feel like he's bunching up or turning into a little bit of a blowfish type. That can happen. So again, I like to break it up a little bit. Have him move around so I don't kind of get hyper focused, which is easy to do. So I'm going to see if I can get that big glob of sand out. You can see he's a little jerky with the foot, but it's really, again, it's a feeling that he's willing to follow my direction, if that makes sense. So if he's willing to pull back and I kind of stay with him, he's not panicking at all and kind of trying to rip it away. He's very, very soft about it. So going to give him some more of those rubs that he's starting to really like. Again, just taking the time to kind of break it up. And he seems to kind of have a bit of a itchy spot right under the neck, so that's why I kind of go there. And I'm not holding the rope. If he was, again, it's probably not the safest, but I do feel like I can get out of the way, and he's actually handling the ground tie pretty well. So again, that was a really good pick up and release, and I'm going to reward him with some good scratches, which he seems to be really enjoying. And it's really fun to see just how his body is starting to kind of relax all the way around. And so I spend a little bit more time scratching and kind of building up that relationship. And sometimes I walk in circles, just figuring out the next step. So I'm going to pick up my rope and move to the other foot. And it's always important to be really aware of where your ropes are, kind of what your ropes are doing. Again, I probably should have been holding on to that rope when I put it around his leg, but he's pretty quiet about it. Doesn't mind me touching. I like to kind of attach the rope up higher, a little bit more so around the elbow, and then let it work itself down. And he's doing pretty good with following the pressure of the rope and not jerking it back or being super reactive that way. So again, with the scratches, and going to see now if I can pick up this foot and pick out the sand. Again, I pretty much start high, work my way down. I'm just going to see if he'll follow my feel. You see, he's kind of trying to jerk away from it, but I don't want to let go until I can get him just follow my feel down with it. Because if you go and you pick it up and then they jerk it away, then that leads to a little bit more to where you can't even hold it. So getting him just to follow the feel is really, really important. And again, he's doing a really good job. He is really, really cool because this can take sometimes a little bit longer to get to this stage. But he's handling this really well. You saw I might have given him a little bump there because he probably gave me a little bit of a nip. But in removing the sand, he's starting to get relief pretty quickly, and so we get some lick and chews. So getting him to realize that when I work on the feet, it in fact feels better. Now I've picked up my nippers. Gonna work on just a little bit of moving him around. You know, he's actually following the pressure of the halter pretty well and leading. So we're gonna see. I do know he's sound sensitive, you know, so sometimes you'll get them good with holding the foot up and stuff, but then they'll hear either the rasp or the nippers, and that can be a little bit unnerving for them. So again, he's feeling pretty good, and I put his foot in between my legs, and again, it's not necessarily normal, but it's going based off of feel. He didn't feel super uncomfortable about it. It was just mainly when he started to hear the nippers. So, and oftentimes when their feet are this long, it's really hard to get the angle of the nippers to get a bite in on it, if that makes sense. So you have to kind of get the leverage of being able to hold that foot. And so I'm able to get kind of one nip, and then we put our foot down and just building it up from there. And then giving him a little bit of a break in between. So then you'll start to see a little bit more of the classic behavior where he's like, well, I kind of don't like this anymore. It's not really fun. But then he follows, and he's being pretty good here. And again, I have to work pretty fast to get in there and get the couple of nips. And again, following the feel of him, being mindful of where my body is. And then because he's being a little bit just wiggly, I decide to see if I can get Megan to come in and hold him for me, since he just seems to be a little nervous about the sound the nippers are making. But it was actually quite interesting to see how nervous he was with someone else. So I had to have her kind of reestablished with him a little bit that she was good too. She is a friend. And you can just see how his body changes a little bit, which is always really interesting for me to see with the horses. So I'm just trying to tell Megan kind of his spots. He won't even let her get to the side. And so I need to get him a little bit more comfortable with Megan, because that was the point, is to have her hold him to kind of help me out. So getting her to rub him and get him to realize that she's okay too. You can see when she goes to touch, she kind of just moves backwards a little bit. But we're going to see if this will work. Sometimes it can be a little bit of trial and error. But then I tell her to kind of give him the scratches where I know that he likes it. And we're going to work on with a little bit of alfalfa. And just to see if a little bit of that distraction will help us in seeing if I can get... I just have a little bit more to go, honestly. I've been able to get a couple of really good quick nips in there to get that foot shortened up in the toe. And Megan is pretty good to know when to just follow with feel and to not really give anything for him to pull back. It's just a little bit more of a direction so we can keep him straight. And then I was able to get in a quick nip there. but I'm going to try to ride it out a little bit and finish up with the quick nip that I had, and I was able to get that. And I just felt like he was still a little bit nervous with Megan, so I was able to finish that foot up with the rasp. And that seemed to, and my phone was doing again something a bit weird, but it kind of ended up being a pretty camera shot. But he was back to being relaxed again, and could finish it up with the rasp. And then here you can see just a little bit of the difference. The front left is the one that we had trimmed, and the front right is untrimmed at the moment. So then back to giving him some more rubs. I gave him a bit of time in between. Then working to the next foot. He's a very interesting horse because when he learns something on the left, it does transfer to the right for the most part. Oftentimes with them, you work on the left side and the right side is a completely new. But he's a pretty smart guy, and you can tell he's just still a little bit worried about the sound. But again, I did this based on what I was feeling at the moment in time, and I would never suggest anyone to do this because this is quite dangerous. But at this moment, I was trusting him, and I'm just following and keeping my foot there. Again, this is very dangerous. I would not recommend this for anyone to do, but it's what I did in the moment. So there you have it. I was just the idea was just following and staying with him, and letting him know that it was okay. So then after that, I was able to actually get a fairly good nipper run all the way around that foot, which was really, really good. And he's standing like a pro right now. And so I was really, really pleased with that. Now I'm just going to finish up and tidy it up a little bit more with the rasp. But he was a very, very good boy. You see, he's giving some pretty good cuddles. Such a sweet horse. And I sped this up for you guys, but he is pretty good now with picking up the foot and letting me rasp around on him. So really, really pleased. And his feet are looking much better, and relieved some of that pressure that was going on his tendons. And then we got some pretty good face rubs. Just finished up this session with really quiet, just rubbing his face and hanging out in the corner watching my students work. But was really funny. I was able to find he liked the base of his ear scratched. So he kind of pulled away when I went up higher because I assumed he wanted his further ear scratched, but it's really kind of at the base of the ear where he was really liking it. And he just I am mindful when they are getting pretty comfortable and putting their head into me like that, but he's just a really cute horse, really sweet. It's been really fun seeing how he's been dropping his walls and letting me work with him. And I just like to kind of keep scratching their face if they let me, and then playing around with a little bit of cuddle. He handled that pretty good. But he says, hey, so like I'm kind of not that comfortable yet, which that's okay. And he still pushes his head into me a little bit, so I kind of will just work on it just step by step, getting him to follow my hands. And he just seems to be really enjoying the face scratches, but really, really happy with Denali. I was so glad I was able to get his feet done today, and he really is a super cute horse.